Today, we're going to be reading through the Focus and Flow article of the Capture course, which is the finale of capturing. And the reason it's included in the capture section is because focus is actually limited when you aren't consistently capturing. So, if you have not established a habit of capturing, which to me is the most important habit to establish, even if you haven't figured out how to process that stuff, as long as you can get it out of your head consistently, that is the most foundational habit to establish if you're looking to create some kind of second brain, some kind of system within Notion or within any kind of system, even if it is literally just pen to paper or creating some kind of notebook. Having that ability to have the crazy thought, get it out of your head is so key. So, I want to share screen with you guys and go through this quick little article, which is called Day 5 Focus and Flow. The key concept is that entering a flow state while free writing, deep thinking, or engaging in any kind of deep work is essential for achieving better results in less time and with less stress. In today's lesson, we will cover some basic productivity principles that can increase the likelihood of entering a flow state. The fundamental skill underlying all action is focus. Without it, nothing happens. When attention is misguided, our limited attention units become distracted and unproductive. I'd like to just stop at that line. So, without it, nothing happens. When attention is misguided, our limited attention units become distracted and unproductive. I think this concept of thinking about attention in units is super, super useful. Uh, Not only obviously you could stretch it into a day, but some people will actually think about it in a lifetime that you actually have a finite amount of attention. And so how you use those attention units determines pretty much the quality of your life. If you are not conscious of your everyday life, meaning you're just playing out the program that society set you up with or that you were born with at birth, the nature versus nurture concept, but we have pre-programming even at birth, and we also have programming that happens to us through society. Where that programming is coming from is beyond the point of this conversation, but you are evolved in many ways to behave certain ways. So, if your ability to be fully present and conscious in the moment is misguided because your attention's going elsewhere, you're not conscious. Your consciousness is going to something that someone else wanted. But when you can actually focus it yourself, to me, that is when you actually step into that element of being fully present, fully conscious. The ability to actually enact free will and make your own decisions, I believe, is in that moment when you become conscious. Otherwise, you're just kind of leaking energy and your attention is going everywhere. So, without attention, nothing happens. When attention is misguided or limited attention units become distracted and unproductive. The more you can focus your finite amount of attention on the questions you're working to answer, the more successful you will be. So that idea stems from this idea that we are always answering questions. Our subconscious mind works to answer questions. So for most people, the biggest question they ask themselves in a given lifetime, this is something Keegan Smith said, was, how am I going to pay the mortgage? And so they get answers relative to the questions they ask themselves. Someone like Elon Musk is asking bigger and bigger questions. That is just a very prime example. You become the equivalent to the level that you think at. So it's not, I don't think it's just about setting goals, but how you question yourself and how frequently you're asking yourself these bigger questions. Do you have a list of the top 10 questions you're answering with your life? For example, how can I build a very strong and athletic body might be a question that some men are answering or some women are answering in their life. Uh, that would be maybe more important than how can I pay the mortgage? Maybe not. Paying the mortgage is still super important, but what if you were asking, how can I make $1 million a month in a business that is serving humanity? And maybe that's not for you, but what is that bigger thinking that you could start to think about, even if it was family oriented? How could I be the best father of the four children that I have? And if your brain is always thinking about answering those questions, you're giving attention to that and you're not letting social media, you're not letting all the things in life that we're being programmed by TV and everything that they want you to guide your attention to, if you can focus it on these questions that you're answering in life, there you go. You're going to start getting answers. Paul Council teaches that intense focus can lead to the production of acetylcholine in the brain. Acetylcholine is necessary for neuroplasticity as it prepares neurons for adaptation, and thus, without it, neuroplasticity is impossible. What is the ideal length of time to focus? Great question. The secret to maintaining focus, enhancing your creativity, and achieving elite productivity is learning to turn off and relax. I learned this the hard way. Your focus muscle needs time to relax, recover, and disengage. Well, then, how long should you focus? When I say I learned this the hard way, I mean that deeply, in many, many ways. I don't even know how to express how much I mean that I learned this the hard way. When you don't give yourself a break, not only in the little snippets throughout the day, but in general, if you don't have the capacity to what I would call get out of work or self, um, this requires some additional context to understanding psychology, but I believe there's a psychological model called embracing ourselves is where the book that it comes from. It's this idea that we are multi personalities. So multi parts is another way of looking at it. The internal family systems model calls it parts. Embracing ourselves calls it selves. But in internal family systems, I like the use of parts, to be honest. So in any case, someone might say, yeah, I don't, I'm kind of stuck in this situation in my life. Like, one part of me wants this, but at the same time, another part of me wants this. That's a clear cut example of like two distinct thought patterns that are incoherent. And most people will be like, oh, he's just undecided. But in this model of observing psychology, this would say you have two different selves with two different worldviews, two different aspects of the nervous system that have developed to protect you in some way, shape, or form. They're all good, they're all useful parts or selves, but they have different opinions. And so if there's nobody mediating that conversation, you're going to always be in this incoherence all day, all night. So learning to turn off and relax would be an example of you have your pusher or your hard worker self, the guy that just wants to go, go, go and get stuff done. And then you have your relaxing self, who is kind of like this free flowing. Hey, I just want to chill and watch Netflix. I just want to sit on the couch. I don't really want to do anything. Can I just go watch the sunset and relax? Very, very useful self. So if you're overly identified with either, if you're just a couch potato, you're identifying with the relaxed self. If you're just a hard worker and you work 12, 14, 16 hours a day, you're probably identified with this guy, and being out of balance, in my experience, doesn't result in good things. Long term, the universe will find its way to balance and bring you back into harmony. So the reason I say all this is because if you can figure out how to actually balance the energies of relaxing and pushing and relaxing, and you do that throughout the day and in bigger chunks, not only in daily, weekly, monthly vacations, things of that nature, I think it's going to benefit your productivity. So I believe applying the concepts shared below can have a significant impact on your productivity level, enough to pay you back in time well over the amount you paid for this course. Here's the general framework Andrew Huberman suggests to increase productivity without burning out: 45 to 90 minutes of elite focus, then a 5 to 30-minute break. I do 60 to 90 minutes of focus, 15 to 30-minute breaks typically. I won't say I do this every time. Sometimes I don't have time to take the break, and I become a total hypocrite of what I just said. It's more of an ideal of what I work towards. Ideally, I sit down 60 to 90 minutes. I don't even always keep track. There is methods like doing Pomodoros, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. There's all these different things. I think keeping a clock is useful. If I say, I'm going to focus for 80 minutes, turn a timer on. Sometimes it's like 50 minutes in and my brain is like, bro, you need a break. And I just take a 10-minute break. I go for a walk. I walk around, relax, use the bathroom, listen to some music, go dance outside, go see the sun. Do something where you don't need to focus intently on whatever you're focusing on. And then after that brief period of time, you get back into work. And maybe that next cycle you work for 90 minutes, you just hit your stride and you're going and you're going. I think surely you could be very, very structured about this. You could say, I'm gonna work for 60 minutes and then take 15-minute breaks. I'm gonna do that 5 times in a row, and that's gonna be a work day. If you're an entrepreneur, that's realistic. Maybe you want to work 10 times. Maybe you want to do that over and over. Decide on something, experiment with it, see what it's like. I've evolved, I guess, into this. I liked being very structured. I'm going to do this at this exact moment. I've liked being very free flowing. I've kind of found a way to balance both of that. So I do a bit of a balance, and there's a good chance in a month I'll be doing something different because I'm always testing things out, trying to figure out what works best for me. In this article, I wrote that I used the Pomodoro technique, which was 25 minutes focus, 5-minute break, repeat that 3 times, then take a big break. So that is something I did for a very, very long time. Right now, I'm not doing it, but I would have a Pomodoro clock, hit 25 minutes on, take that 5-minute break. But in that 5-minute break, I still consider that part of this big focus block. So I would actually do something that requires focus still. Maybe I would go on my phone, text people back. Maybe I would practice juggling or some other skill I'm learning. Do something that's going to actually require focus, learn on social media, take notes on what I just learned. So I was saying here, if I only do 2 Pomodoros, I will only rest 15 minutes. If I do 3, I will rest 20 to 30 minutes. So the longer your focus period, typically the longer you're going to want to rest. And I still consider the 5-minute juggling a period of focus. So the 5-minute rest period, a period of focus in the Pomodoro technique. During the true 20 to 30-minute break, I listen to music, take walks, do laundry, meditate, eat, breathe, talk to people. Ideally, I do things that do not require a narrowly focused gaze, allowing the brain to revive itself and prepare for its next bout of focus. This is what works best for me. Find what works for you. One final reminder, when you get an idea or thought in the middle of a flow state, capture it immediately so that you can get back to what you were doing. For more information on this concept, check out the short clip of Huberman discussing idea. And the rest of this article talks about divergent thinking versus convergent thinking, which we can go into next. But just to close off this concept of relaxing and pushing, I really do think if you can apply this, it can drastically change your productivity. It can drastically affect how you feel internally, so that you can actually turn off this work mode, because it's very, very easy to get into that hard work mode and never relax. And like I said, I speak from experience where I got so into that hard work mode. And again, not to say it's wrong or bad, right? It was just that I became identified with it. Um, I was doing challenges where like I just worked all day, no entertainment challenge where my rules were like no TV, no doing this, no doing that. I basically turned off all the fun stuff, and it had benefits. And I'm doing a certain form of that again now. But when you suppress anything in life, again, it's going to come back at you. Any energy form is going to come back to get you in some way, shape, or form. You can't suppress it for long. So if you're suppressing your relaxing ability, you're not playing the long game. And in the long run, most likely there are a few people that can keep going with that mentality of work hard, work hard, work hard. I do think they'd be more effective if they adopted something like this. They may have some resistance to this. You may have some resistance to this. You may not even be watching the video still, but that's most likely a case that, if you're getting those thoughts like, this is bullshit, it's most likely your pusher or your hard worker talking. Because I know that voice. I know. He has an endless thing, endless task list. He's always saying, "Go, go, go! Come on, come on!" He's the one thinking at night when you're, you know, struggling to go to bed. Maybe he's a she if you're a girl watching this. But anyway, divergent versus convergent thinking. The difference between divergent and convergent thinking is another concept I learned from Andrew Huberman, also discussed in Tiago Forte's book, Building a Second Brain. When you get into a deep free writing state, your mind is flooded with ideas. Your mind is expanding on ideas. You're thinking divergently. When you take 10,000 freely written words and turn them into 1,000 word blog, your mind is collapsing on ideas. You're thinking convergently. These are two completely different thinking methods that require different neural circuitry. Avoid quickly switching back and forth between them. Brain dump, then organize. Write, then rewrite. Capture your ideas, then process them later. The worst thing to do when you capture a thought is to start thinking about where you need to put that thought in your Notion system. We'll discuss processing in the later portion of the course. Basically, divergent thinking versus convergent thinking. This can be simplified to, as I put it, write then rewrite, capture then process. When you try to think new ideas and then collapse on them, your brain's like doesn't know what to do. So that is why most people will say this idea when they're talking about writing of brain dumping. Brain dumping is so useful. And it's just the act of dumping and not editing, not looking to try to figure out, oh, was that a good sentence? Should I rewrite that sentence? If you try to write and write and rewrite, you're going back and forth, and it's going to be very, very difficult to create new things fast. But if you really get into that flow of divergently exploding with ideas, your brain will just keep going. And that's the power of free writing. If you don't know what free writing it is, very, very powerful technique. I recommend reading the book Accidental Genius or reading my summary. But free writing is so powerful, and it's such a clear-cut example of divergent thinking. Convergent thinking is when you then take all those things and you bring it down. Like, this book was only written because the author was able to converge on ideas. Anything in the world is a convergence. Anything you create is somewhat of a convergence of ideas, unless it's literally a brain dump or a guy that just threw something at the wall and then that was the artwork, which I know happens sometimes. But when you're writing something, you're generally going to absorb a bunch of ideas. There's another example of Legos. Uh, Everyone will be like, I just want to have an original thought, something of those lines, right? Where you're trying to create something new. But really, like, you don't have to create the new Lego blocks. You just create something with the existing blocks in a new way that no one's ever created before. So if you don't know what to create, you just need more blocks to then create something new, which would be the case of you're struggling. You don't know what product to offer. You don't know what content create. You don't know what to write about. You don't have the material to finish an essay for school, whatever. Most likely not anybody listening to this, but if you're struggling to create something, go get more information. Go get more Lego blocks to build something. You don't have to actually create anything new. You just create with the existing blocks, and what you express to the world is going to be new. So that's my take on flow state. I think if you figure out that balance of relaxer pusher and you balance this active divergent and convergent thinking, and you find this ability to get into that deep slot of work and say divergently think, now you're going to have a deep flow state of beautiful ideas about whatever you want to create. And if you want to converge on ideas, you set aside time, you get into another deep flow state, and all you sit down to do for that hour or 90 minutes or whatever is that one task where you're like, I'm going to converge on these ideas and I'm going to rewrite all of this. That is, I believe, where the flow comes from. When you can sit down at a desk and say, I'm about to do this. My phone is over there. The music is in. Whatever you need to get into that flow state, all of the elements, you need to clear off your desk. But to tell yourself, I am going to do this thing and do it well, and to sit down and just do it, I think it's so powerful. Um, Again, I'm just experimenting with these things. I haven't mastered them, but they're more ideals and things I'm working towards. So would love to hear your thoughts about these ideas. Let me know.